Welcome to the deep dive. So imagine you're at a bit of a crossroads with your business, maybe trying to crack a new market, or perhaps you just feel stuck. You know, you've tried all the usual stuff, but that key insight, that connection that changes everything, it still feels, well, miles away. Today, we're plunging into this really interesting concept, systematizing serendipity. It's basically about how you can almost engineer those lucky breaks, the ones that really make a difference. For this deep dive, we've got a great stack of sources. We're pulling insights from people like Sophie Krantz, Seth Godin always gets you thinking, and Christian Bush, who's really the expert on smart luck. Our mission here is to show you how to deliberately step outside your usual circles, to unlock faster, smarter commercial outcomes, and really get that crucial edge in this world that just keeps changing so fast.
And that's so important, isn't it? Because honestly, for a long time, trying to reach beyond our familiar networks, for actual commercial gain, it took a huge amount of effort, loads of time, and let's face it, often just pure chance, a lucky meeting. But that whole landscape, it's really shifting now, fundamentally. And understanding this change, it isn't just like intellectually interesting, it's vital, essential really, for anyone building across borders or even just trying to get a deeper, more nuanced grasp of the world.
Okay, so if broadening our reach is strategic, how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
In a world that kind of pushes us back into our comfort zones.
Yeah.
Seth Godin, in This Is Strategy, he puts it so well. He says, basically, in international business, broader circles are strategic. Simple as that. He really stresses that expanding who we include, it isn't just a nice thing to do. It actively unlocks insight, access, and momentum.
Things you'd otherwise miss.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is his point about it not just being about knowing more people, it's about cultivating this mindset, a kind of structural openness, actively taking down those invisible walls we build around our networks. And there's this sense of urgency, too, he points out, because global shifts redraw where business is done,
Right.
how advantage is built, and what it now takes to win. It's just not optional anymore. It's core.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is seeing how that idea, that structural openness you mentioned, connects right into this concept of systematizing serendipity. Because until pretty recently, you were basically on your own, right? Hoping for that lucky break, that chance encounter. But now there are new tools emerging, tools that make this kind of people-to-people exploration more deliberate. It's not just about quantity anymore, meeting more people, which frankly can be exhausting. It's about quality, intentionally meeting the right ones.
Okay.
It's about using technology really to sort of guide those encounters that used to seem purely random.
Which sounds amazing, but how do you actually figure out who the right ones are if you don't already know them? Is that where these new tools fit in?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. And what's really quite remarkable is how this isn't just staying as a mindset, an idea, it's actually being built into the tools we use or could use. We're seeing startups popping up that are actively building ways to, well, literally systematize serendipity.
Right, like Clay, you mentioned, it uses AI not just as a fancy adder book, but to intelligently spot these latent connections, flagging people in your wider network you haven't thought about,
Right.
maybe based on shared interests or recent job moves. It's like a proactive relationship scout.
Yeah, something like that.
Then there's Lunch Club, which deliberately matches you with people just outside your usual sphere, pushing you a bit. And Upstream, making introductions easier through groups based on interests.
Finding common ground first.
But it's going even further, isn't it? Newer platforms like Boardy, they're adding layers like verification, scoring for relevance, even recommendations based on your travel. So you get suggestions tailored to where you are.
And that shift, from just hoping for a lucky break to actively nudging connections, that's where the future is heading. Just picture this. Instead of landing in a new city, crossing your fingers, hoping the right conversation just happens, you'll actually be nudged towards it.
Okay, give me an example.
All right, imagine you land in Nairobi. Your phone buzzes. Your tool shows you 3 mutual connections who are relevant to what you're there for. And it even gives you pre-drafted outreach messages, maybe tailored to the local way of doing things.
Wow.
Or, say, it sees your calendar, knows your interests, and prompts you. Hey, there's a local founder speaking nearby who seems like a strategic fit. Want an intro? It flips the whole thing from reactive waiting to proactive connection building.
That feels like a massive shift from, well, how things have always been done.
Yeah.
This whole idea, it really hit home for one of the people we read about in a really personal way. The moment they actually decided to leave their job at the UN It happened in the diplomat's line at Entebbe Airport in Kampala.
Right, I remember reading that.
Standing there, pale blue UN laissez-passer in hand,
Yeah.
surrounded by maybe 20 others with the same passport, all likely there for development work. But here's the kicker. Same line, similar work, but it suddenly hit them. They didn't know any of these people. No idea how their individual projects were supposed to connect or support each other. It felt like the optics of being important, the diplomat status, just didn't match the outcomes, which were obviously vital for the people and the economy there. It was a real wake-up call.
That story, it really drives home a crucial point, doesn't it? It just highlights how, in that specific environment at least, weak networks were allowed and silos seemed normalized, and accepted even. But increasingly, especially in the global business world, that sort of siloed thinking leads to costly blind spots.
Big time.
And it's not just about missing out on revenue. It could be delaying your market entry, misjudging risks, or totally failing to see a new competitor coming up. The shift is really clear now. Advantage now sits with those who can map the system, not just manage their slice of it.
Map the system. What exactly do we mean by that?
Well, it means understanding the whole ecosystem, right? The interplay of formal and informal networks, the power dynamics, the emerging trends that actually define a place, not just your immediate contacts or your specific project.
Got it. Seeing the whole board, not just your own pieces.
Exactly. And the really powerful insight is that this kind of system mapping, this broadening of your view, it can start the second you arrive, literally, right there in the arrivals hall.
Which brings us perfectly to Christian Busch and his fantastic work, The Serendipity Mindset. He makes this great point that serendipity isn't just passive luck falling in your lap. It's a mindset. He calls it smart luck. It's about being ready, being prepared to see the triggers around you.
And acting on them. Yes, and actively creating the conditions where, a passing chat or a casual introduction can actually spark something significant.
Yeah.
It's not just waiting for good things to happen. It's kind of helping them along, which is why those tools we talked about feel so potentially game-changing. They help prime you for that smart luck.
Okay, so let's make it practical. You're traveling, you arrive in a new city tomorrow. How do you actually navigate that arrivals hall?
Our source basically lays out two distinct paths you can take. You can default to the familiar, the usual routine, or you can consciously design for discovery. So, option 1, default to the familiar. This is the smooth, polished approach. You follow the signs, immigration, baggage, find your car service, head down.
Oh, darn on that.
Right. You smile politely maybe, but your mind is locked on the schedule, the itinerary. Briefing pack's been read, meetings are set, driver's waiting with the sign. And the upside is clear. It's efficient, you feel in control, you stick to the plan, it works. It's how business travel has often been structured.
Makes sense.
But the downside, the risk, is you only see what's already known. You might miss the nuance, the real energy, the actual edge of what's happening in that market outside your planned meetings. Okay, now option 2, design for discovery. Same flight, same gates, but your approach is totally different. It's deliberate. You see that journey, even just the airport part, not just as getting from A to B, but as a real window. A chance to get early signals, build smarter context before the official stuff starts.
How does that look in practice?
Well, imagine striking up a conversation in the immigration line. The person next to you works in a complimentary field, happens to be staying at your hotel.
Okay.
You end up sharing a car. And on that drive, you learn something crucial about where local money is moving or a policy shift that wasn't in your briefing. Game changer, potentially.
Right.
Or at the baggage carousel. Instead of just asking where the exit is, you ask a staff member, hey, where do local business folks grab coffee before work around here? She points you to a cafe you hadn't heard of. You maybe tweak your morning schedule, grab a coffee there and overhear something, or meet someone that gives you vital context for the whole trip.
Interesting.
Or even before you leave home, you reach out to someone on LinkedIn, second-degree connection, never met, but you have a trusted contact in common. Just 30 minutes for a virtual coffee gives you this thread, this insight into the current mood or key conversations shaping the business climate there. Way more relevant than you expected.
Okay, I see the pattern.
So the upside here, you're creating space for new information, getting context straight from people already immersed in the market, and you stumble upon that kind of unexpected relevance that strengthens decisions and connections. And here's the counterintuitive bit. That extra intention you put in, it's not really a drag. It's an immediate investment that pays off fast. You turn dead transit time into, like, strategic intel gathering.
Right.
It's shifting from just being in transit mode to being in discovery mode from the minute you touch down.
That's a really powerful contrast. Designing for discovery. It sounds great on paper. But let's be real. You land, you're jet-lagged, maybe stressed about the first meeting. Defaulting to familiar feels so much easier.
Oh, absolutely.
What's the biggest hurdle there? And how can people realistically push past it?
You're right. The biggest barrier is often just inertia, habit, and the feeling that it's just more effort. It feels like extra work when you're already tired or focused on the next thing. But I think the key is to reframe it. Don't see that effort as a burden. See it as an immediate investment that compounds quickly.
An investment, not a cost.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be huge things. It's about building a few small, deliberate habits. Like just taking a quick scan around you, asking one open-ended question, being willing to adjust your plan just slightly if something interesting pops up. It's like building up your serendipity muscles, you know? The more you exercise them, the easier and more natural it gets.
You know, that point about weak networks really struck a chord. I remember this one time trying to connect with someone specific in a new city and just hitting a complete brick wall because I hadn't done any groundwork, hadn't invested in those, broader circles beforehand. It really makes you realize how much potential opportunity you might just be leaving on the table. Because like you said, ultimately, where we land is fixed. What we see and unlock is not. And in these fast-moving markets we keep talking about, the real edge goes to the people who actually pause, observe, and then act on those signals that others just walk right past.
Exactly. That's precisely what Christian Bush means by serendipity that's earned. It's not passive. You have to work for it a bit. And so often, the most valuable nugget of information, it isn't going to be in the slick PowerPoint deck.
Right.
It's waiting in the coffee queue. It's that offhand comment you overhear while waiting for your bags. It's the conversation you almost decided to skip because you were tired.
The world is definitely shifting, and how we see things, how we act, how we show up, that can absolutely shift with it. Because when we actually allow ourselves to see that bigger picture, well, then we can start to play a much bigger game. So here's something to think about. What's the unplanned conversation, maybe just around the corner, that could sharpen your timing and unlock what matters most for you right now?